Okay, folks, welcome everybody to the June meeting of the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association, and thank you for attending. I think it's likely that everyone who's here tonight is here because they're on the email list. And tonight I'm going to reference a couple of items that are that were noted in the last two emails. So I'm not necessarily going to bring everything up on the screen tonight that we just want to touch on with zoning, but I'll refer you back to the emails where we did include the links to some important zoning documents that you can find on the city website. For the agenda tonight, we're just going to do a quick call to order of the meeting. I'll ask for when board members are speaking, to identify yourself as a board member of ENNA so that the participants know. We have a couple of announcements to do, and then just want to have a general discussion on a number of zoning items that are, or zoning initiatives that are going on, and what some next steps are going to be for ENNA residents as a group, for people to get up to speed, and also to be prepared for some upcoming meetings. And then any new business that residents want to bring up that you may have brought to our attention offline or you'd like to address with the group tonight, and some Q&A if we have time permitting. So just a couple of quick announcements. It looks like City Hall is beginning to resume relatively normal operations. Their communications folks and the mayor have been putting out some announcements regarding people who are vaccinated don't have to wear masks coming in. They've also lifted restrictions on having to have appointments to meet with certain departments, or I think at this point, all departments. And what we're waiting to hear is what the future is going to be about in-person meetings at City Hall, especially for things like Common Council and Zoning, Planning Commission, etc. And I believe the last update that I saw from City Hall is that the city intends to continue to have hybrid meetings going forward. So both in person and Zoom, because it does give a number of people in the city an opportunity to attend and participate, or otherwise to be able to review videotapes after the fact of the meetings. So it really is an opportunity for almost everyone in the city to choose some way that they can participate in local government, especially for the meetings. One meeting that I want to point out to you that's really important actually happens this week, and that is the one of the two monthly meetings of the Zoning Commission. It's this Wednesday night from 6 to 8 p.m. And I do want to point out in the Sunday night, or actually very early Monday morning email to everyone, I put in the links to the agenda for that meeting. And I also highlighted another part of the city website where you can find the documents for the East Avenue Village District Transit Zone. This is the portion where Steve Kleppen, the Planning and Zoning Director, has begun the presentation to the Zoning Commission for what is the creation of the amendments to actually create this zone. The reason why this is important, and it's important to click on the links that we send with the documents, is because the items that are in these documents and in this actual creation of the zone is what's going to dictate the future of development, basically all along the East Avenue corridor from I-95 all the way down to the cemetery and a little bit beyond. So it's super important for people to be able to start understanding how to read those documents. And what you're actually looking for is how to read them and understand what's being presented to the commission, because very soon, possibly as soon as September, the creation of this district zone is going to be coming up for public hearing. And it may sound like a lot of time right now to folks that this could happen between now and September, but as things get issued to the zoning commission and then get issued to the public, there's really not a lot of opportunity for the public to review it and ask questions, and actually there's no opportunity for the public have any kind of a dialogue with the zoning commissioners prior to the public hearing. So it's important now that as we're posting documents, that you make your best effort to actually read the documents. One of the things that ENNA will be doing, though, over the next couple of days, some of which tomorrow night, so that you can be prepared if you're going to observe Wednesday night's commission meeting, is to actually start putting together document links for you with recommendations on what you'll be looking for when you're reading those. And I'll also be highlighting some of the ENNA board comments within those documents, or as a recap sheet, so that you'll get a sense of what your board is looking at. That is something that we'd be encouraging to happen. But as importantly, we'll be highlighting some things that we think all of the residents should be concerned with as well. And I'll start actually posting those in an email blast tomorrow night. And just as a reminder, the zoning commission regular meetings that are not public hearings, the public cannot speak. So you can only observe, but you can certainly take notes. You'll be able to watch the director of planning and zoning actually make his presentation to the zoning commission. And when you're taking notes, if you want to communicate with either Mr. Kleppen or the zoning commission, you are welcome to send in your comments via email. There's no restriction on you communicating with the zoning commission ahead of public hearings, as long as it's via email and it gets shared with the entire commission. So I'll talk about this again in a minute. I just wanted to give you an overview here. The other announcement is an initiative that you may have seen being publicized within the city through different mediums, especially on social media. It's a new initiative that was funded by the city to hire a consultant to take a look at what can be done relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion within the city of Norwalk, to make sure that all the residents in the city feel as if there is inclusion and equity in a number of different areas, things like housing, economic opportunities, jobs, transportation, education, etc. And this group that's called Led by Us, consultants that were hired by the city, have actually started holding workshops in different areas in the city to actually engage residents to be a part of this conversation. Roberta D. Bisegli, one of our advisory board members, actually attended one last week. Roberta, I don't want to put you on the spot if you're on, if you want to say something about it, or if you're...
Well, briefly, I mean, frankly, I'm a little befuddled about what this has to do with diversity and inclusion. It felt to me like it was sort of an economic development situation, very similar to the visioning workshops that we did around the TOD. The presentation that I attended, there were 4 of us there. I think that there was some robust discussion about things that we would like to see changed in Norwalk. I don't know that they're necessarily addressing what I and other residents consider to be gentrification of parts of Norwalk. I think it remains to be seen. I mean, I think their intentions are good, but I don't really know what the end game is. And I wasn't really clear on what it was about. That's about it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I kind of felt the same way. I really would like to better understand what their deliverables are, so that I think that would help us to understand their process and what they're really trying to get at. I actually did take the time to go to their website and also to their other app where you actually join in and you can participate. It really wasn't any clearer to me exactly what the goal was, and what the deliverables would be to the city for something that might be actionable. So I did write that to the folks who are are spearheading that, the two consultants who are part of that group. And so I did get a bit of a response, but I think that we need to clarify it further. One of the things that I did say, though, was that even though I let them know that we, as a group in East Norwalk, we meet the third Mondays of the month, I did let them know that it didn't seem appropriate at this time for us to devote a 2-hour or 2+ hour meeting to this on one of our regular meeting nights. And I did take the opportunity to explain that we have an awful lot going on in East Norwalk right now relative to zoning. And even though that may be a part of what they're looking at, of course, in terms of development and housing, et cetera, that what we would probably do is ask them to go ahead and work with the city to come up with some dates and venues in the general East Norwalk area. And when they book that session, that we would be more than happy to spread the word to East Norwalk residents about the date and time and place and ask people to participate. In the email that we sent out yesterday, this little narrative is in there about the program, but we've also provided links to their website and also to their page that actually ends up, connecting you to, something of an app, but online where you can learn more about it and you can register as a member so that you'll be up to date on everything. I think one of the things that'll be curious coming out of this is coordination of what the city's looking at in terms of diversity and inclusion relative to development and zoning, and what the impact of the new state legislation that's being passed is going to have on that. And I think they're addressing that as well. So we just wanted to get that out there so that people are actually aware of it. Okay, so back to this June 23rd agenda meeting for the Zoning Commission. There's a bunch of items on that agenda. One of them starts with a public hearing of a Spinnaker development down in South Norwalk, another TOD project that's relatively large. So that public hearing can actually take up a big chunk of their meeting. But also within this agenda are two items that are really important to East Norwalk. The first one is under their review and action on pending applications. They'll be doing the official preliminary review of a presentation from Steve Kleppen, where he'll actually present the text amendment, which changes the zone, that's going to create the East Norwalk Village TOD district zone, which they're calling EVTZ to as an abbreviation. And then within that, he's incorporated one of many changes, and we're not sure why this is the only one listed here, but the change that allows dwelling units and artist live/workspaces to be within the industrial 1 zone, but within designated areas on a particular map. So all of this kind of looks like mumbo jumbo, but basically what it is Steve Kleppen presenting to the Zoning Commission a preliminary review of all the changes. Now, even that sounds maybe a little bit simple, but what it is, it's probably 20 pages or so of the actual text amendment that would create the zone. And it is also some documents that relate to his recommendations for the bulk and height within the district. So if you're not able to actually watch this live on Zoom or YouTube on Wednesday night, we'll also post the YouTube video recording of this that they do. And typically what we try to do is edit that so you don't have to kind of, fast forward through all of the other stuff on the agenda. But at some point over the next couple of weeks, we think it's really important for people to hear firsthand exactly what the Zoning Commission is being asked to consider and asked to approve for East Avenue TOD zone. The other item that's on there is a little bit later in the agenda, and this is where they get into discussion items. It's not meant to be any kind of an action, but it can also include the zoning chair instructing the planning and zoning director to either course correct on something or continue working on something, or at least get updates on what the next steps are. And these are important because, as you can see, the first one there is Mr. Kleppen will be providing a report to the commissioners, or an update on the industrial zone study, of which we have multiple zones in East Norwalk, including the northern parcel, and also an update on the overall zoning regulations rewrite. And that's something that's really citywide, but it's going to impact us as well. He's also going to continue the discussion with the commissioners on the mayor's and the ordinance committee's plan to look at merging the planning and zoning commissions. Some of you may have read about this in the news, and I think we posted some information on it a couple of emails ago. The reason why I think it's important to listen to this is hopefully Mr. Kleppen will be at a point where he can elaborate more on the pros and cons of merging these two commissions, which for years now have been separate. If you read the Norwalk Hour article about this particular recommendation from the city's ordinance committee, it opened up by saying that the purpose was to make it easier for residents to be able to apply for permits and not have to deal with the Planning and Zoning Commission, to kind of streamline things for residents. And I found that interesting because I was really kind of hard pressed to think of many examples where a regular resident might be putting in some sort of a zoning permit application that would actually require them to have a planning commission review as well. And I really couldn't think of too many cases where that would be, except possibly someone with a multi-acre property looking to subdivide for additional housing. But the bulk of the types of applications that come through that require a review by both our Planning and Zoning Commission or a referral from one commission to the other and back again really have to do with larger type developments. And so it just really seemed to me like I'm not clear on really why this would be a benefit to combine them, except to be a greater benefit to the big developers to streamline being able to go through one commission instead of two. And just in case you're wondering why that would be beneficial, is when a major developer has an application that needs to be reviewed by both, they typically have to engage most, if not all, of their experts and their land use attorney to make those presentations. And those things can be multiple presentations that take multiple hours each time. So it's not just time, it's also money for the developer too. So I think while ENNA would certainly be supportive of cutting through all kinds of red tape when it comes to local government, I'd be a little concerned here about just what this would mean to what would happen with major development applications, and if it really means like real fast tracking that could cut out a review that otherwise we would rely on for our commissions to look at. And then the last item on their discussion item is something that just popped up. I didn't even see this, beforehand. Is that we've been talking about trying to expand the moratorium within our industrial zones so that we can try to make sure no objectionable applications come in while the industrial zone study is still underway. But in this discussion item popped up on their agenda for Wednesday night, saying a discussion on a moratorium of self-storage and distribution center uses. So again, I don't have any background from Steve Kleppen on why this is in there, but I would suggest that in addition to them looking at these two items, that they also expand that to warehousing as well, which is the other concern that we had in the industrial zones. And anyone who follows our emails and has been at our meetings for the past year, you also know that ENNA is in support of having a moratorium on all special permits in the industrial zones until the study is actually completed. So again, this meeting on Wednesday night, it could go late, it could be fairly long, but we hope that you'll be able to either watch it live, or you'll be able to view it on the video recording after the fact and really get an idea of what's being proposed for East Norwalk. When you do that, it's helpful if you can kind of list your questions as you're watching, or make notations on what your concerns are, and then we'll be discussing those at our July meeting. And also, I think, and we can discuss this before we close tonight on this meeting. I think because of the timing on some of the stuff that Steve Kleppen is looking to do, we may want to see if he and possibly the mayor and possibly the chairman of the zoning commission, if they would be able to attend our July 19th meeting, and ahead of the next zoning commission meeting on I think it's the 21st, so that we can hear from them exactly how this is progressing, and most importantly, they can hear back from the community on what their concerns are. So it should give folks enough time between Wednesday night. The video should probably be posted on Thursday, and hopefully it'll give people enough time in between to get up to speed. And then if we are able to have them as our guests on the 19th, then people can be prepared to have a constructive dialogue with them. So one of these days we'll have a meeting that hopefully would be fun, maybe a little frustrating, but we'll show people really how to be able to navigate the city website, because we know a lot of people are having difficulty just finding information. And if you're not able to find it easily, we know that it's frustrating and most people give up. But within the planning and zoning department, and in their drop down for applications, you would next go to a field called applications pending. And what these are the development applications that are before the zoning commission right now in some form or fashion. Within that, for example, in East Norwalk is the 25 van Zant application. So if you happen to be interested in that, you'd be able to click on that and then go down and take a look at all the documents that are associated with that. So any of the pending applications throughout the city that are in for zoning review are actually on this page. One of the things that you may notice that jumps right out at you now is that the ones that were withdrawn, for example, the Norton application, is no longer visible here because it was withdrawn. So you can't click on that at this point. But the one that is in here is what we were just talking about, the East Norwalk Village TOD zone. So when you click on that, you'll actually be able to see the documents that are, sorry, this thing is jumping around here. So these are the documents that get presented to the zoning commission. And as each document gets updated, they'll also post that and they'll put the date that it got updated. These documents and these links were in the email from yesterday, so you can also find them there and you can click on them. The reason why it's important to come into this screen is you have an opportunity to review exactly what's being recommended actually before Wednesday night's meeting. So it may give you a frame of reference as you're listening to Steve's presentation to the commissioners, to have this frame of reference ahead of time on what actually he'll be proposing. The things that you'll want to be aware of is wherever a document is posted here, and then you have a revision of the document, because you'll want to understand what's being revised and updated as they go along. I did send an email to Steve this weekend saying that the revision items aren't necessarily clear. So we're asking him to make sure that as people open up a document, they're able to really discern what the differences are without having to compare, one page to the next. I'll point out just a couple of things here so that you can see when you open these documents. The one that's the schedule limiting height and bulk of buildings is for the East Avenue Village Transit District Zone. You can see that in red along the bottom here. And what Steve has done is he's created this grid to be able to compare this new zone with another similar zone, which is the East Avenue Village District, which is down by the green, and also to compare it with neighborhood business zone, which 99% of the East Avenue corridor here in East Norwalk actually is right now. And so he shows you the difference between what's allowed currently in those other zones and what's being proposed within the East Avenue Village Zone. So for height and stories, where the right now in the neighborhood business zone, it's 2.5 stories and 35 feet as a maximum. In the proposal for the new district, it would be 2.5 stories and 35 feet as of right, but it can go to 3.5 stories and 45 feet high by special permit. And I think everybody remembers that from the TOD, from the actual TOD plan and the study. The special permit, I'll just remind you, a lot of that is tied to bonus amenities, which we'll talk about in just one second. So you can just kind of follow this along and you can see where the substantial differences are between what exists now and what's being recommended. A couple of things that we've pointed out that we're going to look to get answers from Steve Kleppen on, for example, is in this column where the front of structures compared to, I believe this is the center line of the street, goes from 40 feet is what's used in the East Avenue district down by the green, to 35 feet from the center line existing now on East Avenue in our neighborhood business. But then when you get to the new village district transit zone, that suddenly drops to none. And so we really want to have an understanding from Steve what that actually means about where a building can be placed relative to the street. In the same light, there's a column called the maximum front, which we think is the frontage. And neither of the other two zones had a designated maximum, but now in the new zone, it says it's a 10-foot maximum. So we were kind of reading this saying that the frontage from the curb to a building couldn't be any more than 10 feet, which really doesn't make any sense to us. So we're going to be looking to get clarification on that as well. And there's also some concerns about how they're designating the setbacks on the side and the rear of the buildings as well, and also the maximum area for what can be built. Right now in the neighborhood business zone, the maximum building area is 35% for the building, or 80% for the building and parking, and then 20% open space. The proposal for the new zone is 80% for parking and buildings and 20% open space. So we're not sure. Again, we need to get clarification on why that changes from something that's just buildings. We think it has to do with the requirement for all of the new development to be able to provide on-site parking that's adequate for every use within their own parcel. And then I'll just highlight one other one that is a change right now, even from the one that was issued a couple weeks ago. So before, for recreational areas on a development, there was a requirement to have 200 square feet per every dwelling unit, with some exceptions in there. And then in this latest update that Steve posted on Friday and provided to the commission, that recreational area has gone away altogether. There isn't any requirement. And again, we're concerned because we're not sure why that would have come out. And we're not sure if it's related to another option that he has where they can make a payment in lieu of having recreational area within the parcel or on the grounds. And then there's just more there on how many, the density of the units that can be there. And I think you guys are all familiar with this. Right now, they can have 1 unit for every 1,650 square feet of a lot area. But by special permit and with bonus amenities, it can be, the density can be increased by as much as 1 unit for every 825 square feet. So the point there is roughly double. Typically, when a zone amendment and text amendment are being presented to the commission, the zoning staff will issue what's called a staff memorandum. And so this was prepared on the 18th and ahead of the June 23rd meeting. It comes from Steve Kleppen directly, and it goes to the zoning commission chair, and it gets will get shared with all of the zoning commissioners. It basically is just a high-level overview of what would be in these recommendations, and it points out some items that the commission should consider. There's actually 3 things I want to point out in here, and this will be important for you to watch for on Wednesday night as well. In the new modifications, you may recall that there's a list of bonus amenities that a developer can qualify to start to earn points. And once they reach a certain level of points, they're able to increase their height and density of a particular development. And there were a number of bonus amenities in there that people really felt should be the price of entry. They should just be doing it anyway and not be given a consideration for height and density related to it. And we've made that point multiple times. And in fact, at the last zoning commission meeting, even the zoning commission chair made that point to Steve Kleppen, that some of these things need to be considered the price of entry. But on this one, he's put in additional amenities that he thinks they should consider. And the 2 of them are porous paving and geothermal. And so this falls under the sustainability as well in the environmental. The reason why this kind of raised a red flag is because I believe, and most East Norwalkers, I think, will believe that porous paving should now be the standard within the city, especially in neighborhoods and areas of the city that are prone to flooding, which East Norwalk is, but also where direct runoff is impacting the Mill River, the Mill Pond, rather, the Norwalk River, and Long Island Sound. So we're not sure if we would agree that porous paving would be a bonus amenity that they can earn points on for higher density and height. We think that this should be something that is, again, the price of entry. It should be a given that new development here, to the greatest extent possible, uses porous paving. The same thing with geothermal, which is a little bit more complicated. That may be something that should be eligible for points because it's a little bit more elaborate in terms of how that gets implemented with a new development. Literally geothermal, like the heat from the earth, to be able to use for energy for a building. But here's the one I really want to point out to folks. And it's highlighted in the full text amendment in a very light gray when you go through that document. And I have to say, I went through the document probably 6 times before I was able to pick up on this. And I'll just read verbatim what he's saying here. He said to add a clause that would allow the commission the ability to consider amenities that are not included in the text. The reason why this is important is because the development of these bonus points and amenities is directly tied to how a developer can achieve points so that they can have more rental units and higher or larger buildings. And the original idea of these amenities was that these bonus points would be defined very specifically in the beginning of both what they are and how many points were being allocated to each one. The reason why ENNA originally bought into that concept is we thought that it might be an ideal way to level the playing field for everyone, so that nothing would be arbitrary. Every developer and every property owner with an application would be looking at the exact same amenities with the exact same number of points. And we thought it was at least worth considering in the interest of fairness. If this new clause gets added in, it basically makes that system arbitrary on a case-by-case basis with developers who may come to the table with other amenities that aren't in the text. And the way that this actually reads in the text amendment says that should an applicant propose an amenity which is similar to and in keeping with the intent of the regulations, the commission may allow the amenity in addition to the other amenities in that section. So I think you can probably see the concern there already that if it's in keeping with the intent of the regulations and similar to, those are really kind of subjective reviews of what the proposed amenity could be. It would really be subjective to say, well, we think it's similar to, because there's no basis to really judge that except for someone's reading of the, of the words in a particular application. And then also with the intent of the regulations. So anything that considers the intent of the regulation really means interpretation of it. And whenever you have interpretation of something, it can tend to be subjective. So I would say that ENNA and our residents should be particularly concerned should this clause actually be added in there. The other thing to watch for is the discussion on what Steve has called the unresolved issues. He's looking for feedback from the commission on whether the point system itself might be too restrictive and whether or not using it would then can the desired development be realized. So you can see already there's a discussion about what people agree to up front that would actually protect us in terms of future development may already be looking to, they may already be looking to water it down with a goal of the desired development being realized. One of our first questions might be, what exactly is a desired development? Okay, then the next thing I want to just point out to you is kind of the rapid time frame of this. And we're not sure there's really enough time for the public here in East Norwalk, much less the entire city, to really understand the magnitude of what this text amendment to create this zone is going to be about. So Steve is recommending that he review with this Common Council Planning Committee in July. Well, that's actually a week from this Thursday because they meet the first Thursday of the month. And his review with that committee would be on the eve of the 4th of July holiday. So we're not sure how many people are going to be engaged in actually participating in that meeting, which, by the way, does have public comment. And so we're concerned with something getting pushed through that the zoning commission is really just seeing for the first time on Wednesday, and that the planning committee is going to be seeing a week from Thursday. And then Steve's intention is to have this back before the zoning commission at their July 21st meeting. And now we're talking about just 3 weeks from the time the planning committee of the council takes a look to the time the zoning committee is going to be asked to take a look at the review draft again. This date here, the July 21st date, is why I'm recommending to everyone here that we consider having our July 19th meeting devoted entirely to this topic and to ask the Steve Kleppen and the mayor and the zoning commissioner, Lou Schulman, to come as our guest, so that we are interacting with them ahead of the zoning commission's July 21st meeting. And then Steve wants to start the referral process immediately following that, which would be, I'm not sure what the referral process would be, because I'm not sure if the planning commission still will exist as a separate entity or not. So we have to get clarification on what that referral process means. And then, so then we jump ahead. Some of these commissions don't actually meet in August, but the first opportunity for public engagement would actually be a joint public hearing, and that would be in September. And it would be with the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission, assuming both of them are still separate at that time. So I would say that this is a little bit hasty, given the fact that we're not quite sure what the interaction can be between ENNA and the city to make sure that residents fully understand the scope and ramifications of this plan and have an opportunity to provide feedback. But also I want to say that if the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission are still separate entities come September, it may not really be fair for the residents to only have one bite at this apple, then to have a joint public hearing. Well, while it may expedite things for the planning and zoning staff to be able to get this, to the next phase to be approved and implemented, it may actually deprive us of an opportunity to speak to two commissions and raise different issues that, both of them should be concerned about. The Planning Commission, just as a reminder, is the commission that actually approves the city's plan of conservation and development, which is the master plan. So it's already about 10 of 8. I just wanted to touch on quickly, just to remind folks that the city did approve funding for Steve Kleppen to go ahead and now extend out and have an industrial zone, waterfront zone study. I think they funded maybe $60,000, I think it is. I'm not sure what the dollar amount is. And for that to take place, I think it's over the next 6 to 10 months. I'm just doing a little bit more research into that as well, because am I looking like a ghost again in here tonight? Sorry, it's so lighting in here. Sorry. One of the reasons is when I take a look at the city zoning map and identify the areas that are legally identified as waterfront industrial, it really looks like it's only two pieces of areas. One is in East Norwalk, but the waterfront area is actually South Smith Street. And that's where like the yard waste and the DPW center and the water pollution control, the sewer plant is. So and the other one I think is listed as industrial, and it's the area upriver where you'll find the Divine Brothers operation. And I think also one of the boat builder operations that are up there. So it seems a little bit curious to me, and I'll listen to feedback from you guys, of course, but I'm a little concerned that small of an area would require a completely separate study from what the consultant already did in the industrial zones, and why just those two parcels, and why would possibly take that long for them to develop a development plan for them. It just seemed kind of curious to me. And then the final point I want to make is I know you've been anxiously awaiting the document, and when I start getting some new documents out to everyone to read, included in those will be the updated and what we think is the final version now of the ENNA subcommittee's document on the zoning regulations within East Norwalk. So you may recall from a couple of meetings ago, we did a presentation of the draft document where the subcommittee team did a review of the existing zones in East Norwalk and a review of the zoning regulations in East Norwalk. and really came up with some excellent recommendations for what needs to be looked at and what we think needs to be considered here in the future going forward. And again, importantly, some things that we really would be looking to come out of the industrial zone uses in the East Norwalk in the future. Does anyone have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything about the zoning commission meeting, about the recommendations that you're seeing so far in the East Avenue district?
I have a question. Dan, can you hear me?
Okay. Yep. Hi, Nick.
Oh, hey, I'll put down my hand here. I had a quick question. When you were going over before, you were showing where the data was located on the website, and it was showing the applications that were open, and we didn't see Norden on there. And I know that you sent some emails around the possibility of Norden. I was under the impression that they kind of started that process early. Could you maybe just give a little color on where they are? It sounds like maybe we found out about it prior to submitting the application then, based on their name not being there, or did they submit it and then withdrew it real quick? Maybe if you can just get some color.
Yep. Okay. So what it is we basically have the same applicants coming back in to reconsider uses for the Norden parcel. They did not actually file an application. What they were looking to do was to have what they were calling a pre-application review with the zoning commission. And it's kind of just a tip there, like to dip their toes in the water without actually filing the application, to get some ideas before the zoning commission to say, hey, where do you think we might be able to go with this? And it's really because once you start to get into developing plans for applications, it takes a lot of time and it's extremely costly. More costly than the average resident realizes for them to do. So it does give a developer or an applicant the opportunity to really kind of get a feel from the commission if they're going down the right path or if they're way off base and they shouldn't pursue spending money on something that's not likely to be approved by the city. Now, what happened in the meantime with that, though, Nick, is because we felt it was covered under freedom of information, we asked Steve Kleppen to provide the information that had already been sent into him in anticipation of this pre-application review. And he provided it to us. So I guess there may be a question of whether or not he should have done that or not, but it's a moot point now because he did. So we took some of that information and published it, I think, 2 emails ago. We took out some information that we thought might be proprietary and could jeopardize perhaps a future deal for a tenant up there at Norden. But we left the things in there that would at least illustrate to people the scope of what these applicants are coming back in with. Basically, what it looks like is they want to use the entire structure that's there and have a number of different uses within the structure. Things from food processing, like bakeries and things, to movie production storage facilities. And I can post it again, but if you backtrack a couple of emails, you'll see it there.
No, I read it. I was
Nick,
just curious about the state of it.
So I'm sorry, say again.
Oh no, I read it. I was just curious about the state of it since it wasn't listed,
Right.
but we had so much on it.
Right.
Okay.
So in the meantime, then we had sent an email to their attorney to ask them what they could share with us in terms of possibly even having the applicants come in to tonight's meeting. It would have been to have them come in and talk about now how they've changed, how they're viewing that parcel, because it probably would be beneficial to them to try to garner some support from ENNA even before this pre-application review, given the, kind of the massive opposition that they faced the first time around. I posted her response. It basically was to say that her clients are not in contract contingent on these things with the property owner. And so she did not share any information or accept the invitation. I do know that they had told Steve that they were not prepared, yet to come in with the pre-application now, but I would just have to say my gut would tell me that that's going to happen any day. And we'll continue to watch for it, and we'll ask for a heads up. It's hard for us to kind of remember to go onto the city website literally every day and look to see if something was posted. We would rather have a relationship with staff again where they give us a heads up that they posted something, and where they advise the applicant to come back in. So Norton is not over yet. And in the absence of the moratorium that we asked for being implemented, basically any of the existing uses that are approved there now can come back tomorrow. I will also point out that in the revision of the text amendment to create the East Norwalk Village District Zone, I did notice that it looks like Steve has removed some restrictions on the size of restaurants and retail and office that would be allowed as of right. So, for example, I think there was one that said, as of right, you could have retail that didn't exceed, I want to say like 8,000 square feet or something. But then when I went to his updated amended version, those maximum square footages are crossed out. And that's another thing on our list that's concerning, because it appears that with those three uses, they've literally have no maximum for what could be developed and applied for and approved without a special permit. So that's a little bit alarming too. There's actually a whole bunch of things in there that are concerning. So I'm just trying to pick out some that may make sense to people of why ENNA would be concerned about the documents that are going forward. In an email that I sent to the mayor and Steve and the zoning chair, the chief of staff, and also to Steve's boss in economic development, I expressed some of these concerns. And I did express the fact that ENNA would want to see documents coming to us that really are easy for us to discern what's changed from what people think the TOD plan is to what he's actually now presenting to the zoning commission. We shouldn't have to dig through 20 or 30 pages and like compare them side by side to see what's different. It's, it's labor intensive, and it's going to leave stuff to fall through the cracks. And we also want to make sure that we have access to all the documents that the zoning commissioners are seeing. In this zoning staff memorandum that I mentioned earlier in the meeting, which is Steve's memo to the commission, he opens up by saying that he's attached 3 of the simple test fit scenarios for the parcels. And but online, those attachments are not there. The reason why we would have wanted to see those attachments, I'll refresh your memory quickly, is during the whole TOD planning process, some of you may recall that the consultant did what are called test fits for different parcels in East Norwalk to illustrate what is there now and what could be there under the special permits and the new regulations for TOD. So without seeing these 3 test fit scenarios that he's referencing, but that he's providing to the zoning commission, we're not really sure of just, how these new changes could actually look on any of the parcels that they're describing. The other thing that I mentioned in the memo that I sent this weekend is that we're really anxious to see test fit scenarios on the parcels on East Avenue, because when the consultant did provide some of them, they didn't have in there some of the parcels that were the most controversial. Wells Fargo Bank being one of them, the old Howard Johnson's being another one, and there was a third one which escapes me. But I mean, they did do a mock-up of the St. Thomas Church School, but there was a third parcel that we wanted to see a test fit of what could go there. and it didn't want to provide it to us. So really anxious to see why these sample test fit scenarios that he said are attached are not available to the public on the website. Yeah, so a question came in on the South Norwalk large water industrial zone along Water Street. So, someone actually had mentioned that regarding Water Street, but Water Street is not, when I went and looked on the zoning, the building zoning map, Cheryl, it shows Water Street as marine commercial. And so if what they're looking at is a water industrial zone, it's not the same designation as the South Smith Street or Divine Brothers upriver. It has a completely separate designation, and Steve does not reference it in his waterfront industrial zones additional study that this consultant is going to be doing. And I believe I sent him an email on that already to ask him that question, because someone did bring up Water Street. Maybe we can do a show of hands, because I think we're still in the mute mode here, but I can see most everybody. Do people think it's beneficial for us to try to get our July 19th meeting then, to have the city officials here devoted to the East Norwalk TOD changes? Okay. Thanks. I mean, if someone thinks there's something that's, more pressing issue, let me know. But given that timeline, I'm concerned that if we don't try to pull that together for one of our regular meetings, there's not a whole lot of nights in any given month that are really free for people to get together, especially like the mayor and city staff. And if we miss that July 19th, I'm not sure when we can do it again. So I will push for that to happen, and we should be able to get that to happen. Okay, so just to recap now too, tomorrow night we will we'll start posting some of these documents, hopefully in a more cohesive way, and so that you can start reading them, and we'll start being able to publish documents that will give you our assessment, because we realize that people are kind of relying on ENNA to pull through most of this stuff and point out, what's good and what may need some improvement in them. So our next meeting, unless anything changes with the time where we can get some city folks in here, is going to be the July 19th. It'll be 7 p.m. Our meetings are still going to be via Zoom for the foreseeable future. We're not sure if and when we'll be able to utilize the Marvin again. So we may also be looking for meeting room space within East Norwalk going forward. And certainly if anybody knows of any space that would be conducive to meeting in person again, we'd like to know about it. Just so that you have it handy, our website is eastnorwalk.org, but you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Nextdoor. And always feel free to shoot us an email. They come directly into me and another board member, and we answer everyone as quickly as we can. The email is info@eastnorwalk.org.